Hello students, welcome to BTech 360. This is something that's very important for all the students who want to pursue BTech CSC. A lot of students and parents keep coming and asking me what's the future of BTech CSC? What kind of jobs would you get and would the jobs be there? Remember, when you get into BTech CSC this year in 2026, you're likely to pass out in 2030. So how would the world be in 4 years' time? In an era where AI is changing every 15 days and every 30 days. In fact, what is relevant yesterday is irrelevant today. What is relevant yesterday is become obsolete today. In that kind of a change, with that kind of a speed of change that you're seeing because of AI, how would BTech CSA be affected? And would it be as effective, as efficient, and as ROI driven as what you had earlier? Right? This question is something that bothers most parents, and we also are looking at how closely, and we're looking at data closely around the globe of how is the recruitment, how is the admission trends in BTech CSC across the globe. And especially when a university, which is the topmost public institution in the USA, starts looking, and when you start looking at data from that particular institution, and the kind of trends or direction it gives you, it is something that all of you as parents and students must notice. What I'm talking about is data from UC Berkeley. UC Berkeley, you should know, is the 9th best university in the world based on PhD rankings, and maybe 13th or 14th as far as QS rankings is concerned. But it's considered to be the best public institution in the USA. And recently, some data came out in the last 2 days, which should be data piece that you should all be looking at very carefully to understand what kind of trends are happening. And the news that came out from UC Berkeley is this, that UC Berkeley CS major enrollment on pace to drop by 59%, part of the nationwide trend. So there are two things here you must be very carefully looking at. We're talking of CS major, 59% drop by 59% as part of the nationwide trend. So this is, and by the way, this is done by Daily Californian, which is California's newspaper. So very clearly what they're talking about is 59% is the drop that happened at UC Berkeley. Now, why does this happen? These are important questions. So we actually had to look into that deeper to understand whether it's only UC Berkeley that's fallen, because of course the news says that it's nationwide trend. But how are the other colleges, how are the big large institutions around the globe faring as far as BTech CS is concerned? And before I show you some data of how the CS program is doing, my only request to all of you is please subscribe to BTech 360. And if you want me to cover anything else, write to us in the message box and I'll be happy to cover that for you. Now onto the big data that I'm going to show you. Now what we saw is this. There is a CS major that is in crisis is what we look at this point in time, and it's a global decline in computer science enrollment across the globe is what we're saying. And this is of course driven by AI disruption, a softening tech job market. So tech jobs are coming down and shifting student priorities. Universities worldwide are witnessing a historic retreat from traditional CS degrees. So what we're talking of is the CS degree in its traditional format is what is being questioned or challenged. The CS degree which is in its traditional format is being challenged for the kind of outcomes that it may give or may not give. It doesn't mean that CS as a degree with something else added, which is AI, ML or any other new technology, will be challenged. But if you're dealing with the CS degree in its traditional format, you will be up for a big question mark, because that might not land you a job in 2030 when you pass out in 4 years from now, graduate in 4 years' time. You must start looking at those CS degrees which actually give you a lot more than the traditional CS format, which means the curriculum, the pedagogy and the skill set that you're going to learn in CS should be dramatically different from what was being taught earlier. Right? What are we seeing? In UC Berkeley, we saw a 59% drop in 2 years' time, drop at UC Berkeley from 25 to 27, right? And the nationwide decline across for the 4-year program in 25 was 8.1% across the nation, right? And this is driven by a 6.1% drop in employment. CS grad unemployment rate is 6.1%. So when you actually see a drop in employment, you'll always see a drop in enrollment for the program which is not getting you that employment, which is where you actually see an 8.1% national drop and 15% in UC Berkeley alone. So this will give you a trend of what you should be expecting or what you should be careful about when you're getting into a BTech CSE in a blind way. A lot of students say that, I'll do BTech CSE and I'll get a job. That is not necessarily true in the current times, because AI is eating it away into most of the work which was being taught in the traditional BTech CSE program. Now we also wanted to look at other institutions. It's not just UC Berkeley, we wanted to look at other institutions also. But within USC Berkeley, when you look at it, across the thing, which is California's flagship seat, right? You actually, in 15-16, it was 422 students. Went up to 1,029 in 24-25, right? And look at this drop. From 422 went to, and came down to 350. It's now lesser than what you saw in 2015-16. That's a massive, massive change. So you're dealing with 59% projected drop in CS graduates in 26-27, and the graduates shrinking from 851 to 350 in 1 year flat. In 1 year flat, what you saw is 850 to 350, right? And the number one trigger for this is AI and tech layoffs reducing job confidence in CS careers. The confidence that you used to have when you were to do it, CS career is dropping now because AI and tech layoffs are reducing. One is layoffs. Two, AI itself is ensuring that there are not more recruitment. And two, you're actually seeing people being laid off who did CS earlier because that skill set is no longer enough for you to retain your job. So it's not just about hiring, it's actually leading to layoffs also. And this, by the way, is limited to UC Berkeley, but let's talk of how the other colleges are doing, how the big, large other institutions are doing. Now, let's look at not just Berkeley, but the entire UC system. And there are multiple colleges in UC system, you should all know that. Now, here when we look at this data, it was 12,600 in 2021. It's come down to again 12,600 in 2025. So it peaked, it kept moving up and peaked here at 13,500 or something like that, but it has started falling as you move along. So very clearly there is a trend. So there's 6% system-wide CS enrollment drop in 2025 across the system. So it's not just now UC Berkeley, but we're talking of all the UC, University of California system colleges, right? And 3% year-on-year drop showcasing accelerated trend. So year-on-year, there's a 3% drop. And there's one exception, which is UC San Diego, where only campus with a dedicated AI major. This drop also is protected because San Diego actually grew in terms of its admissions because they actually added a course for AI. So a traditional CS is falling, but when you add an AI, it's actually growing. And that is what all of you must be looking at, of what exactly is the additional skill set that you learn. Because San Diego, what it did was it actually added a course with AI and its admissions or enrollments grew. But when people were just sitting on the traditional CS degree, it started falling. Now you look at UCLA also. UCLA, for example, we actually had 10,200 in 2022, went up to 11,939, fell down to 9,100, and current in 25, it is 6,805. So within 2 years, if you now notice, what is 11,939 has become 6,805. These are CS applications, by the way. Nearly half, acceptance rate more than doubled. So the number of students who are applying for CS has almost halved from 11,939 to 6,805. About 40-45% drop. I'm talking of the applications here, we're not talking of the seats here, right? So there is a 43% drop in applications fell from 11,000 to 9,000, right? That's a 43% drop. Now, because the applications dropped, the seats were there, mind you. The admission rate or the acceptance rate, what they call it, went up from 3.1% to 7.2%. More than doubled. Because the applications halved, right? And other engineering majors saw no comparable drop. So we're only talking of CS which has dropped because the other engineering majors have almost been stable. So what we're looking at is a drop in CS dramatically in terms of applications because students are no longer confident that they'll get a job based on the CS. There are layoffs on one side of the earlier skill sets and no new recruitment that's happening. And on the other hand, the other engineering majors are holding on to their enrollments, whereas applications for CS is dropping dramatically. Now, we looked at MIT also. That's also a very good indication of what's likely to happen. When you look at that, the CS course, which was 707 in 2016, went up to 760 in 2018, 790 in 2020. It peaked at 823 in 2022, but fell down to 672 in 2025. So from 823, it fell down to 672, which is 18.3% drop. So CS major has dropped by 18.3% in 3 years flat. On the other hand, the AI, which was a 37 here, which started in 2022, went up to 372. There's a 10x number growth. So AI major grew tenfold. 37 students become 372 students. We're talking of MIT now. So we're talking of CS dropping by 18.5%, but AI growing 10 times because the number was very small. The base was very small. Because of this, the overall course enrollment still up since 2016 by about 21%. But the important thing that you should look for is because what is 672 plus 372 is what the number is, which is much higher than what you have in 823. Because between these two, we're dealing with about 1140 against 823. Right? So, sorry, 1040 as compared to 823. Right? So what we're dealing with is that if you add AI, it's going to grow, but only CS in its traditional format is up for a question mark. Now we moved earlier to next to Stanford also, Stanford, CMU and Ivy League. Right? Here in MIT, the CS acceptance rates, if you look at it at elite universities, and we talk of elite programs, still highly competitive, but CS graduates struggle in the job market. Right? The acceptance rate here is MIT is 5%, Stanford is 4%, CMU CS is 5%, Caltech is 4%, UC Berkeley is 5%, and UCLA CS is 20%. Right? The thing is, employment rate for elite CS grads dropped from 20 to 24 from 80% to 70%. So there is a drop in the employment rate. The CS grad unemployment in 2025 is 7th highest across all majors, which is 6.1%. It's the 7th highest across all majors. And more importantly, applications still recorded at CMU, MIT, selection pressure unchanged. So there is decent selection pressure, but at the same time, when you look at just CS, you're getting into a problem as you move along. Right? Now move further to Oxford or NU, because we are talking of US till now. So I thought, let's look at UK also. Right? This was the peak. The first sector-wide enrollment declined in a decade, international student retreating. So we are talking of Oxford and all, right? What was 5% earlier, peak, is now minus 20. Right? So we're talking of fewer students at UK universities in 2024, first fall in decade of 30,000. Oxford undergrad enrollment down 500 students in 23-24. Right? And it will fall further in 26-27, trust me, because of the kind of restrictions and the kind of foreign exchange crisis that you have, in the sense that the cost of education in all these universities is shot up dramatically. And then UK government also has imposed a 6% tax for foreign students wanting to study in UK. Then the immigration policies, the work visa permits and all those things. All those things will see a further drop as far as Indian students studying there is concerned, right? And 61% of the 69 UK universities reporting falling postgrad enrollments. In 25-26, 61% of the UK universities saw a falling postgrad enrollments also. So we're now not talking of CS only, but we are talking beyond that in terms of the kind of enrollment that you have. So what's driving the decline, right? One, AI disruption. AI tools reduce demand for traditional coders. Students pivot to AI/ML majors instead of classic CS, which is happening in India also. In fact, in India, along with CS, there are about 25-30 specializations that are being added. Every college, every university is adding some specialization to maybe increase the number of intake that they have, but it's happening, right? There is a big job market because the layoffs happening, there is no new recruitment happening, and to that extent, the employment rate is falling. CSM unemployment hit 6.1% in 2025, nearly double philosophy majors. Tech layoffs hurt grad placement, right? And then major migration. Students aren't leaving tech, they are switching to AI data science. So what we're talking about is traditional CS is question mark, but AI data science and domain specific programs are increasing dramatically. So the silver lining is interest in computing hasn't vanished, it's evolving. What we're saying is that it's not that CS is in danger, but CS in its traditional format is definitely in danger. And that is what you must be looking at. Jensen Huang has said that, Elon Musk has said it. What they're talking of is this: go and invest yourself in pure sciences, fundamental sciences. Ensure that your foundational concepts are very, very intact. You'll be more resilient. Whatever happens in the job market, you will find a job as long as you're very, very strong, for example, in physics or mathematics and those kind of things. And if you want to do CS, do it with something which is a specialization, which is a skill, which you can use in the job market. A traditional CS will not get you a job as much as a skill that you attach along with the CS that will get you a job. And that is very, very important for you, because what we are looking at this point in time is a massive disruption in the job market, a massive disruption in the traditional CS as we all know it. And that is for all BTech students must be looking at it very, very carefully to understand what they should be doing, how they must prioritize in terms of what they will learn when they prefer or choose a BTech program in any of these large universities. Because if you don't add a skill to just your traditional CS program, you're likely to be, because you're graduating in 2030, you're getting into the college at this point in time in 2026, and you graduate in 2030, by then the world would have changed. And if you don't change your skill sets or add your skill sets, you'll struggle to find a job. I hope this helps you. Please keep talking to us. Please keep telling us what else you want us to cover so that we can actually cover that for you. All we're trying to do is to ensure that you take the best decision so that you get into a best student outcome, which is placement at some point in time, which is where we are actually warning you, alerting you, and also informing you the way you would want to look at it. I hope this helps you. Thank you so much. Namaste.